Do you feel like you're doing everything right? You're eating healthier, you've cut out the sugar or cut back on it, you're not drinking coffee or only that little half cup. You're doing everything you can think of right. You're tracking your ovulation, and still you're not getting that positive pregnancy. It is really frustrating. And I would say the most important thing to remember is your body's not failing you, it just may be trying to tell you something. And that's the important thing to know is that usually when you're not getting pregnant yet, there is some variables that might be in play, things that you're missing. Could be nutrient levels. It could be that the testing you've had done so far has not been comprehensive enough. A lot of times they'll say comprehensive. It's not comprehensive enough. And you need to know exactly for you what is going on there. And you don't know unless you actually do some of those tests. And so I'm not like a huge test pusher. I'm just letting you know that what everyone else does isn't always what you need. So that's the first thing to kind of keep in mind is figuring out specifically for you and your body what may be off that is keeping you from either conceiving or staying pregnant. So stick with this. What I do want to say is eating clean is really important, but it's not the only thing. Really, you want to make sure you're getting enough of the right foods consistently throughout the day. Some people skip meals and they're not getting in everything they need nutrient wise. And taking a prenatal can be great too, as long as you're getting a good prenatal vitamin in. And that's what I was alluding to before. Sometimes the vitamins are not always the milligram dose is not as high as you think it is. And there may be areas where you need more of certain things. Stress factors, uh, environmental toxins, there's a lot of different things that can actually deplete you more so that your need is higher on certain vitamins and minerals than you might think. So that's why it's really important to know what you're dealing with, what might be getting in the way of you conceiving, because your body needs to be built up to a certain point where it's not just about your own health, it's about making sure that you are healthy enough, not just for you, but for a baby to be in there thriving and growing. So strongly urge you to think about what you're taking in right now. Are there things that you're missing? Are you not getting enough protein in your diet? Maybe you're being really good with your vegetables. And protein, like it doesn't always have to be about meat or fish. You can be getting it enough with added certain nuts, have more protein in them, as well as a lot of legumes. Your different beans are actually pretty high in protein content. So if you're vegetarian or vegan, those are definitely good ways of getting in more protein sources. But getting in enough good vegetables, good dark leafy greens, have more nutrients in them. And so I urge you to take a look at your diet and really make sure that you are really getting all those key nutrients in as part of your diet. And that will help quite a bit. But we're going to be talking about some other things that also can come up that are really important to know that will guide you better during your journey to conceive. A woman can eat healthy and still not have enough nutrient content. Sometimes maybe you're eating a lot more vegetables, maybe not enough proteins or good proteins. Sometimes you're just not sure what else your body needs. And so you can be missing vital nutrients in your diet. You think you're getting everything in, but unless you know exactly what your deficiencies or excesses could be, it's really hard to gauge what else you should be taking into your diet. I would say also that not all prenatals are created equal. If you're taking those as well and you're thinking, well, I'm taking a prenatal, I should be getting what I need. But there's a couple things with prenatals. Sometimes it's where they they look like they have all the nutrients you need, but they may not have the most biologically available types of those nutrients. So what I mean by that is like you could have a magnesium oxide in there and you're like, okay, I'm getting magnesium. But the oxide is one of the hardest ones to digest. And so it's not doing the same thing for you as if you got a magnesium glycate or malate or threonate. There's a lot of different binders and they all have different aspects to them, but you want to make sure you're getting one in your prenatal that's going to be the best for you, most absorbable, but also at a good amount. Sometimes the milligram doses are very small, and if you're not sure what to look for, it can make it really trying to figure out which one should I have. And so I see that a lot in different prenatals that I've had patients bring in, what are they taking? Because I just want to see if they're getting something good. And the other part of it can be, well, maybe they do have enough nutrients in there. Maybe the milligram doses of each vitamin are actually pretty good, as well as the minerals. But then you look at the actual fillers that they put in the prenatal supplement. And sometimes those have things that are harder for your body to break down. And so they get in the way of you getting your nutrients. And here you think you're doing everything right. So it's really important to make sure you investigate the prenatal you're taking. Sometimes something from, I love Costco, but sometimes those are not going to be your best ones. So you really want to investigate and make sure you're doing a search on whatever you're taking and make sure you're getting enough of the nutrients. But even if you are taking a vitamin that's giving you enough nutrients, there are things that we do in our lifestyles that can also drain those. So we really want to be diligent with really good food intake, which we talked about already, like the importance of that. But you also want to make sure with the vegetables you're getting that they're very rich in nutrients. So we already said organic is actually really good. So for those of you that are getting in more organic produce, that's great. Farmers markets are awesome. And if you're getting in good cuts of meat, that's also great. If you're vegan, then making sure you're getting enough of the right nutrients that are going to fill all the areas, getting enough B vitamins, your iron, all those things. And we're going to talk about those a little bit more too, because they're all important and they can all impact whether your body is ready for fertility or not. So some of the nutrients that you want to make sure you have more plentiful amounts of in your system to help support fertility can be measured by a blood test, more of a, I would say, a comprehensive blood test, because they need to be able to have your vitamin D markers, your iron levels, even the ferritin, which shows how well you're storing iron. Those are important. You usually have to ask for extra ones like if you're checking for folate or if you're making sure that you don't have a methylation problem. That's another one that can get in the way of your uptake of folate and also B12. And so knowing that there are specific tests you can ask your doctor for, and that MTHFR is what I just mentioned. That's one you can say, can you test my genetics and see if I have a problem there? Because that can make a difference, and knowing it can help in planning what changes you need to make and what you need to take more of. So that's one thing. With iron deficiency, if you do have a low iron count, usually that can happen when you bleed a lot each month or your periods are irregular where they come earlier each month. So you're bleeding more often. So that can also greatly lower your iron levels. Fatigue, dizziness, those are other symptoms of low iron. And sometimes they can mimic other things with deficiencies. So it's not always just those symptoms. But the first ones I talked about with the blood loss and frequent menses, those can both play into deficiencies, but you in iron, but you can also have hair loss. And that's another one that can also come up when iron is deficient. You can have pallor as well if your blood's down, or having shortness of breath, or even feeling exhausted even after you get quite a bit of sleep. So iron is definitely one that you should test. Sometimes they'll only check your complete blood count and say, okay, well, that looks good. But if your iron's low, then that can still be a great impact. So then you have to know, okay, what else can I do to try to help my iron levels? There is a thing too where you can be getting too much iron, but usually as long as you're regularly having periods, usually it's not as much of a problem because you're already losing blood each month to take care of that. It's usually just a problem later on. Or if you're not having periods regularly, then you could actually store more iron. So it does make a difference just to check it in the first place, just to know where you are with it. And here's why it matters with fertility, because iron helps carry oxygen through your body via the blood. So your ovaries, eggs, uterus, and even the developing lining of your uterus need enough blood supply via iron rich blood. And so it's really important to make sure that you're getting those nutrients in to help that. Another thing to keep in mind is that when iron levels are low, that your body may go into preservation mode. And so it's not as concerned about helping you get pregnant as it is making sure that your body is functioning. So that's another reason why it's really important to know what your iron levels are doing right now and making sure that you're taking in iron support supplements are really good to take in, but also making sure that you're getting the foods that will help support that as well, and that you're able to digest them, because iron supplements can tend to be pretty heavy, and you want to make sure that you're taking it with food and that you're making sure that you might try to get one that has a better absorbable binder to it, and that can make a big difference. If you have one that's a really heavy uh, add to it, like if it's an iron oxide, I mentioned oxide before, some of those are harder to break down, so you might actually feel a little bit nauseous when you take it. So that's why getting a really good prenatal, but then you also, if you are iron deficient, may have to take something additional to it. So just being mindful there once you're checked is taking the right steps for that. And low iron can also, besides affecting your fertility, it can also affect your energy, your thyroid levels, and also egg quality and how well your uterine lining develops. So those are all really important. So I would stress, if you are feeling exhausted and your doctor has just told you everything is fine, I would ask for them to do a few more specific tests. So ferritin is a good one to check, as well as iron saturation. Those will both give a little bit more information about your iron. And then also the folate level and vitamin D. And that's vitamin D3, not D2, that they would want to check and just make sure your levels are up enough, because that also plays a big part with fertility. So if you are having some of those symptoms that I mentioned, as far as feeling very tired and that the periods have been heavy, and maybe you aren't getting enough iron in your prenatal vitamin, then you want to look at some of the foods, like your good beef, also poultry, your fish products. But if you are vegan, then you're making sure you're getting enough lentils or different legumes that can be higher in iron and proteins, as well as spinach, pumpkin seeds, and if you're a low, ovo-lacto vegetarian, then also getting in eggs can also be a good source for iron. So pairing it iron with vitamin C type vegetables, or even just a vitamin C, also helps the absorption of the iron. So that's a good thing to keep in mind. And just a reminder is that don't supplement iron blindly. Some of the symptoms I might have mentioned before can also mimic other issues. And so it's always better to check your iron levels, go to your doctor, get the blood test done, check those levels, and make sure that it's iron that's depleted, because you can actually go the other direction. Too much iron can create more inflammation in the system. So you want to make sure you're at the right level, that you have enough, but not too much. Because if you actually did have the condition, there's actually even an inherent condition called hemochromatosis, where genetically you tend to hold on to iron more. And so that would be the case where you would not want iron in your prenatal. You would not be trying to eat more iron-rich foods. And so as long as you're having periods, that does help regulate it or keep your iron from building up too much. But just know there's two sides of the equation as far as iron's concerned. So double check, just see where your levels are. And if you do tend to have high iron levels, checking for that genetic would also be a really good idea. Otherwise, I would say other things that you might be missing. Number one is getting enough protein. So, we like our carbs and sometimes the sugars and things of that nature. But if we're not getting enough protein in our diet, that also can be a problem. So just, especially people that miss meals, I think that tends to be more of the problem there. So make sure you're getting in meals each time, plan them out so you're getting in proteins throughout the day, and as well as good vegetables that are nutrient rich. That's all really important. And I'm always a big fan of organic. I already mentioned iron. Omega-3s are another one that really can help your system overall. We need to have some of those good fats. They help, yes, they give you more safer of the cholesterol in your system, but you want to know that you have something that's keeping inflammation down as well in our system, because that can tend to be a factor for most of us where we're trying to minimize inflammatory aspects that could impact our health. So omega-3s are a really good one. They help the eggs too. They're good fat. So that's important. Otherwise, mentioned vitamin D, but that's an important one to check and see if you have enough of it. And with D3, I normally recommend that you're taking in, I should say, what your level is when it's tested is between 50 and 70. A lot of times, if it's right around the very low border, they'll tell you it's okay, but it's not okay at 30. That is too low. So just know, like, you want to make sure, like, if you're taking a prenatal and it's a pretty low amount of vitamin D, that you might have to take additional in that case. So I am a big fan of testing because that's the only way you know what you're dealing with. Otherwise, you start throwing things at it and seeing what sticks, and it may not be in your best interest. So let's make sure those get tested. And folate, I mentioned before too. So folic acid is what I'm referring to, and I mentioned methylation issues because we need the B vitamins, and especially the folate and B12, to really help our system do what it needs to do. It's required in so many processes in our body. And so having that checked too, I would urge you to do and make sure you're getting in enough. Besides the folate, you also want to get in enough of the B12, and that also can get measured. If you are a vegetarian, you do need to make sure you're getting in more supplementally, and there's non-meat sourced B12 options that you can get. So that's an important one you want to make sure you're getting in, especially since it does support your energy levels. It helps your ovulation, your nervous system, as well as healthy red blood cells. So those are all important parts that B12 will help with. The other one, kind of put these two together, but zinc and selenium are also very important with fertility. And those are typically in prenatals, but they may not be in a high enough amount. It really does depend. And unfortunately, with food sources, since farming tends to affect more of our soil, and I should say some of the pesticides and things that get in the soil can deplete the actual vitamins there. And so even our food sources aren't as strong. That's why you pretty much have to supplement. And the zinc and the selenium are what I'm recommending. And these minerals support thyroid health. They'll also help with egg quality and ovulation and hormone balance. So they are very important ones to make sure you're getting enough of them in. And ways you can also get it is seafood, your meats, your eggs, and also pumpkin seeds and Brazil nuts. So if you have, if you can nosh on some of those throughout the day, Brazil nuts, you only need about 2 to get enough selenium. They're actually very high in it, so you don't want to, overdo it. but those can be nice ones to get in what your daily amount is, just with two of those. So that would be a done deal. I do have enough resources to safely create and sustain my life is an important thing to be thinking about. So when you're going through your different prenatal products or other supplements you're taking, you really do want to review and make sure you're getting in ones that are the most absorbable. And then also make sure that you're eating a diet that's going to be having the darker greens actually have more nutrients in them, and they're getting in good cuts of meat, and that you're getting in legumes, which are also, a lot of those are very rich in a lot of nutrients. And so make sure you're getting in a good variety of things in your diet that can fill all the different spots where you need your vitamins and minerals. Why your body may not be ready for pregnancy yet. And I know this one's an emotional one, and so I'm just going to work through this one gently. Sometimes your body may not feel ready for pregnancy yet, and not because you don't want it badly enough or because you're doing something wrong. It's more because your body may be under stress. And stress can be emotional stress, but it also can be from things like you're getting poor sleep, you're not waking rested, you're still feeling tired. Maybe you're over exercising. So if you know you're going to the gym and spending hours there, you may be over exercising, or even if you're overrunning. These things can be good for your system in moderation, but they can be really taxing to your body when done too much. And especially when you're trying to create something like a baby, you need to make sure you're doing things in moderation with exercise, getting in enough, but not too much. Okay. Blood sugar crashes can also affect your system. So if you're not moderating it, or, even if you are dealing with diabetes and you're trying to regulate there, but sometimes it's because of the way we're eating too. So if we're drinking something sweet or eating something sweet, and then we're not having something that's going to stabilize it, like a carb or protein, then we can crash, basically, like you just lose your energy and you've got to eat something soon. So that's another thing. Otherwise, like inflammation internally is something that we don't see, so it's harder to know it's there. But a lot of us do have inflammation in our bodies. I would say probably all of us have inflammation there. And it could be where you actually are aware of it because your joints hurt, or you're having an upset stomach more regularly. Gastrointestinal issues are also an inflammatory aspect. So there's a lot of areas that you may not attribute it to inflammation, but it can be inflammatory based. And so when that's happening, that can also throw us off and not get us in the best position for fertility. The other is low nutrient stores. And so we talked a little bit about that already, is making sure that we have enough nutrients in our system to support a pregnancy, because it's not just you that you're supporting anymore. Now you want to help grow a baby. So you have to make sure that you're really taking in enough good nutrients and supplementation, and then not overdoing some of the other things in your life that could deplete your system. So if you have chronic exhaustion, that's another sign. So these are things, if you know they're occurring, is to start doing things to help support your system more, so that you're in the best shape mentally, emotionally, physically, to be able to support a pregnancy. I think that's the hardest part, is if you don't know what to change up or what to do, and why you're sleeping poorly, why you're so exhausted, why some of these things are happening, then you do need to take a little look deeper. And, not getting in enough food, not getting in enough rest, not enough nutrients, too much stress, it may prioritize those things over reproduction. So, and I know it can feel unfair because you're trying so hard right now. It just means that you need to make some different steps to protect your system a little bit more, to lower some of the things that are causing you stress. And I know sometimes people are like, I'm fine. I think is that you get used to such a certain amount, I should say, a certain amount of stress in your life, that you don't even equate it to stress anymore. And maybe it's dealing with an in-law. Maybe it's your work partners that are always causing issues. Maybe you're just overworked with your job, or what's happening in other areas of your life. And you just think, oh, okay, well, the times are tough right now, but you don't always see it as stress. And stress will create cortisol. And cortisol takes you out of hormone making mode that you need for reproduction. And so stress can be mental, can be emotional, can be physical stressors. And so that's where trying to step away from things that are stressing you out, finding other ways around, like if it's work stress or family stressors, try and figure out ways to lessen that stress in those areas. What can you do differently? How can you make your system work more effectively because you feel better? You feel more centered and grounded. Even doing things like meditations, or if you don't deal with meditations well, there's different things that you can be doing, like even nature walks where you really just look at the beauty around you and find the air that you're breathing in, the cute little animals, if you like animals, is make it special for you so that you're not ruminating about all the things in your life that may be causing you more stress. So that's the whole idea, is getting yourself out of that stress state into a more relaxed feed and breed state. That's the difference. You're either in fight or flight mode, or you're in feed or breed, or rest reset. That's another name for it if you're not trying to get pregnant. But those are really important. And so this doesn't have to be perfect. It's about creating safety in your body. And it might be eating your breakfast within an hour or two of walking. That could be one thing you do. And making sure you're getting enough protein and healthy fats in your diet, and resting more. So if you know that you're exhausted and feeling tired, you may need to look at what you're doing before you go to bed at night, stepping away from your phone, because a lot of times those devices with the blue light can actually keep you awake longer. And so you want to get into a good deep sleep. You want to be able to dream. All those things help your body reset and feel better the next day. And if you do wake up in the middle of the night, do not look at your phone, because that will keep you awake longer with that blue light. And I would say, if you can, try to step away from your computer as much. If you have work, I mean, I'm not telling you to stop working, but just at other times, not always going back to it, because it does become kind of addictive. And so sometimes, or at least wear glasses that will block the blue light. That's another way you can help things along. And so you want to make sure you're checking your labs and finding out what's deficient or potentially excess in your system, and make sure you make changes that will help that. And then support your nervous system by reducing levels of stress that might be making things worse and making you more tired and not as ready to conceive at this point. And so make sure that your body has the building blocks that it needs. So, as I said, pregnancy takes a lot from the body. So you need to make sure that you have the building blocks there. So instead of asking yourself, why haven't I conceived yet? Instead, I would say, try asking yourself, what does my body need more support from? Or what do I need to do to support it so that I can conceive? That question can change everything. So you don't need more guilt, and you don't need another extreme diet to try to get pregnant, or to maybe work off weight to get pregnant. And you don't need to blame your body. You may simply need better information and deeper nourishment and a clearer picture of what your body is missing. So that's why I still go back to get tested, find out what you might have deficient in both mineral and vitamin levels, and then check your blood. Make sure that you don't have any iron deficiency or excess. Look at your folate levels, your vitamin D or D3, and your B12. Those things can be a good starting point just to find out where you need to change things up. And you don't want to do any extreme dieting. And I would say that fertility is not just about food, and one supplement or a a perfect routine. It's about helping your body feel safe, supported, and well resourced. And remember, your body is not against you. It may just be asking for support. So, this information is not to make you feel guilty or make you question yourself. This is really more about getting clear on what things you could be doing and adding to your diet and lifestyle to make sure that your body does have all the groundwork, all the nutrients it needs so that it can function at its best so you can get and stay pregnant. That's the most key thing that we want to have you walk away with this one. So make sure you're taking a really good look at what you're taking in, what maybe you should take out, and then if you can talk to your doctor about having more comprehensive testing done that I'd mentioned in here, that will go a long way to know where you need to add or take away different things in your diet. So stay tuned for the next video. We'll be giving you more information that's really valuable towards your journey and helping you get pregnant sooner and stay pregnant. So stay tuned. Please like and follow as well. Thanks.